thyself is to love thyself, is to examine, observe, and respect thyself. It's an ongoing process, never to be explained in a brief synopsis. It's a preoccupation with reflection and revelation that can only be achieved through discipline and determination.
Hello and welcome to the Encouraging Words Show. I'm so glad that you've tuned in. Let me tell you, of course, if you've never seen the show, I want to give you a little bit of background. Now, today's show is going to feature careers in the technical realm, so I'm going to talk a lot about that. And the show itself is based on a book that I wrote about a year ago. It's called Free Money for College. Whole purpose of the book is to share with you some of the experiences, some of the trials and triumphs that I went through, as well as tips and strategies for students and parents, and most importantly, ideas on how to reduce your college costs. Now, as I've said, the name of the show is Encouraging Words, and we have a special guest for today. The word of the day is going to be technical, and the guest for today is Dr. Kelly Trainor. Thanks for coming today.
Thanks, Jamila. Thanks for having me.
Oh, not a problem. It's my pleasure. So let's jump right in, because we're talking about technical careers, and the campus for Central Piedmont Community College that you represent actually has a lot of technical majors. What exactly do people mean, though, when they say technical majors, and what majors do you have at the Harper campus?
Right. So typically, when we think of technical careers in a community college setting, we're talking about those types of programs that allow people to enter the workforce directly.
Okay.
And so it may not necessarily be a really highly technical field,
Okay.
but it's typically a path that will allow them to get right into the workforce.
Okay.
So at the Harper campus, we have a number of different programs that allow that to happen.
All right.
First and foremost, probably I guess alphabetical order would be a good way to go. Architectural technologies is one of the first ones that a lot of those students that graduate enter into, there used to be a career known as a draftsman, and that's probably the best way to imagine or to think of what that career is now.
Oh, okay.
Some of those students also transfer on and become architects as well.
Okay.
But if you want to enter right into the workforce, that's a good example of that. There's a lot of 3D design going on now, 3D printing, and so a lot of those things all kind of tie in together.
Okay.
Another one would be construction management. That one pretty much speaks for itself.
Right.
People that want to get into the construction field and kind of the supervisory role and manage projects.
Okay.
We also have electrical systems, and so within the electrical systems we have people that can graduate and become electricians.
Wow.
Electrical technicians, either in a residential or kind of a building setting or manufacturing setting as well.
Oh, okay.
We have HVAC, which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Also refrigeration.
Which is really important here in the South.
That's right. Yeah, you want to make sure your air conditioning is working in the summer and even the heat in the winter.
Yes, yes, very true.
And so again, within that program, we have a lot of students that can go a lot of different directions. Everything from installation to being technicians and maintaining, and even getting into building automation systems. And we have a lot of smart homes, smart buildings nowadays.
Because that was actually my next question. Like, what do you mean by automation? So, the smart homes.
That's right, smart homes. And now, and tied to that, there's a lot of things such as fire system, security, low voltage.
Wow, they get that technical.
And so a lot of this stuff is now really starting to blend together. And so we're really moving away from these really clearly defined job roles like we used to have, and we're starting to see a blending of a lot of things, and in part because of technology and computers and computing and the power that we have now, and everything is now networked. So, so let's see, we've gone through a few of them.
Electrical, architectural technology,
construction
management. And there's visual, don't you have graphics or advertising?
We do. So kind of rounding out the construction side would be welding. We have a very large welding program. We teach all different types of welding, everything, again, welding related to construction, manufacturing as well, automated welding, robotic welding, pipe welding.
There's that many types of welding?
There's all kinds of weldings.
Wow.
They use all different types of materials, from steel to aluminum and everything in between. So
I never would have imagined.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff out there. And then, once you build something, a lot of times these things need to be inspected. And so we have non-destructive examination, which is another program which leads into that. And within that program, we basically train people how to inspect welds. And so if you've ever flown in an airplane or driven across a bridge, anything that's built like that needs to be inspected to make sure it meets the right standards. And so we train people visual inspection methods, ultrasonic technology, which is almost like when you go to the doctor with an ultrasound. And then we also have radiographics. So we have an X-ray tube in there and a film developing lab.
And those are the methods those non-destructive examination students use. Those are some of the techniques they use to examine, to test things. So I think we hit everybody except for the visual.
That's right. So then we have the other side. So we have advertising, graphic design. That's kind of a blending between kind of marketing and advertising and with a really strong design component built into that. And then we also have our graphic arts and imaging technology. And so that's the manufacturing side of kind of printing and packaging. So you have our advertising graphic design people that really built around branding and how you design. And then you have folks on the graphic design, which really focus on the manufacturing and the printing.
So you have all of these at this one campus?
We have all of these at the Harper campus.
Wow.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your background then. Does it relate to some of these areas, or what was your transition into, education? Did you were you destined for that? Was that something you thought in high school you wanted to do, or did you take a roundabout path? How did that
very roundabout path. I kind of fall into different careers, I think is the best way to think about that. All right. I started out in college just really enjoying science, and so I ended up going into agricultural education. I was a high school agriculture teacher.
Really? Okay.
And so if anybody's been a high school agriculture teacher, you know that they're kind of a jack of all trades and master of none.
Very true.
So I taught at a very low level a lot of these different trades: basic construction, wiring, landscaping, concrete masonry, those types of things. I also taught welding classes.
Really? Okay.
And so I had a pretty good understanding of a lot of these programs that we have here at Harper campus. So that's really helped me out. I then went on to graduate school, got a PhD in microbiology, which kind of got me away from back into science and away from kind of the agricultural technical careers. But then I ended up getting into the community college in Arizona, and I kind of had the luxury of doing both. I taught science classes as well as managed the greenhouses and did a number of things kind of back into the ag world. So it's been a very kind of broad, roundabout kind of set of experiences that have brought me here, but I think it's all added up to getting me a good skill set for being where I am.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you came. Now, as you guys could see on the slides as we were speaking, of course, it had a list of the different majors that they offer at the Harper campus. If you're ever interested in any of those particular areas that Dr. Trainor spoke about, by all means, watch the show till the end, because we'll have some contact information where you can reach out or visit our website for more information. Now, as it relates to, of course, we talked a lot about different construction-related majors. You mentioned construction management, you mentioned architectural technology, electrical, you mentioned heating and cooling, that sort of thing. The Charlotte area in the North Carolina market is pretty interesting. There's a lot of demand right now for the construction industry, and I guess that's nationally, not just North Carolina. But what is something that you're working on currently that's making an impact on the local market in order to alleviate that need for workers in the industry?
Well, at CPCC, we actually have a number of initiatives that are going on. Some of those are being kind of created and really being brought up to speed as we speak. Some of them focus more on high schoolers, and some of them focus on more the adult population. So we're trying to reach, all ages, all different types of maybe demographics that
Okay.
kind of fall within the Charlotte region.
Okay.
So to tell you a little bit about what we have on the adult side, we've had a long-standing partnership with Goodwill Industries, and we have adult construction program partnership with them where they have the classes there, but we provide the instructors to teach the construction classes.
So they're college level classes that adults could take if they go through Goodwill?
That's right. Yeah, they're college level. These are non-credit classes.
Okay.
But they are taught by college faculty. And the idea is to give people that base level skill set that they need to get started in the construction industry.
I see.
And it's in a short period of time.
Okay.
That program runs right about 7 weeks. So you can get
So
through
that's
pretty
kind of
quickly.
to whet their appetite and see what the program offers?
Well, and it provides them a base level skill, a lot of the fundamental skills, safety, and all those things that employers are looking for.
Yeah.
That'll really help give them a leg up and make it so that when they get on a job site and get hired with a company, they'll be safe and they'll be productive, because that's really what companies are looking for.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's one program.
Okay.
Another one that we're working on for adults is accelerated career training, which is CPCC's version of this partnership that we've had with Goodwill, which encompasses a number of different programs. So very similar to that.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like about how long would those last? Because I do know a lot of adults that are, that are interested in going back to school. One of the complaints that I hear often from working adults is trying to fit it all in. First of all, working and going to school, for those of you that are watching probably are very familiar with the fact that it's hard. It's hard as heck to do that.
It is.
But can someone do that in like less than a year or so? Or
yeah, so the programs that we have in there are 32 weeks or less. So basically a full, so 32 weeks, our semesters are 16. So that's two semesters long.
Wow.
So within a year, they can complete that. And it's really that's finding the balancing act of being able to put classes at certain times that allow them to do the job, go to work and earn some money, and still be able to come in and complete the training that they need in an accelerated time period.
Yeah, which is really important to adults returning back to school. They're trying to get in, get out, and hit the ground running and working. So that's great. When will those programs be in place, or are they in place now? Or?
So we are going to be doing a full launch for most of the programs starting this fall. So this summer we're really starting to get a lot of things moving on that end and getting things organized, and so we're real excited. We have a lot of donor support. So this is going to be an earn while you learn situation. So students that get into the program, the education's paid for. So it's completely.
So those of you listening at home.
That's right. So we're going to have a lot of opportunities, and that really helps out. So by having this initiative, everything paid for, that relieves a barrier, or removes a barrier for a lot of people. So then if they can just figure out how to get there and get through the training during the time period, they're going to be on the right track.
Oh, perfect. And that's another, of course, thought that I hear from a lot of people is it's so expensive going back to school. So if it could be subsidized or covered overall, is there something in place where they have to have had a certain GPA, or is it whosoever will come?
Well,
how does that?
it depends on the track. We have a number of different areas that they can go. Some of them are in construction, welding, but we have them, business administration, some of these other things as well. So it kind of depends on the area that they're interested in. And a part of this is a lot of career assessment, interest and aptitude assessments as well, to make sure that they're going down a track that really makes sense for them.
Okay.
And so it really depends on the person.
That makes perfect sense. Okay. Well, that's our time for the first segment of the show, and I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. This again was Dr. Trainor of the Harper campus in Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte, North Carolina. We want to thank you so much, and stay tuned because we'll talk more about construction and the need for skilled tradesmen and women, for that matter, in those areas as we come back from the break. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Encouraging Word Show. For those of you who were tuned in to the last segment, to this segment will be just as exciting. Now, for those of you who are just tuning in all together and it's fresh and new, let me tell you a little bit about the show. The Encouraging Word Show, if I can get my words right today, is really centered or based on a book that I wrote about a year ago called Free Money for College. And the whole purpose behind writing the book was to help students and parents to gain knowledge and insight on college and career preparation. In addition to that, I have little tidbits in terms of what my experience was. And then last but not least, one of the things that I think is most important is people talk a lot about college costs these days. So I give examples of real world resources that you can use to reduce or eliminate some of your college costs. Now, I have a special guest with me today, and his name is Mr. Stephen Corriher.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's a pleasure to have you, definitely. Now, Steve Corriher is actually the Division Director of Construction Technologies at the Harper campus for Central Piedmont Community College. So that was a mouthful. Tell me a little bit about what it is you do and what areas fall under your umbrella.
Okay, in the Construction Technologies Division, we have architectural technologies, electrical systems, air conditioning, heating, refrigeration, construction management. Those are the degree programs. We also have non-credit programs in masonry, carpentry, general contracting prep, code enforcement, code qualification,
for building codes. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Home inspection.
Oh,
just about anything to do with construction. We're housing that at the Harper campus.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Now, how did you get into that?
Wow, it's a long path. I was a late bloomer into construction.
Okay.
I went to college, went to UNCC, got a degree in psychology.
Okay.
Was planning on going that route and being a psychologist in a partnership with one of my sisters.
Okay.
Didn't exactly work out for me. I wasn't the best student, to be honest with you.
Okay. Keep making it plain.
Yeah, but I graduated from there and went into transportation, is basically what it was. Because when I was in college, the trucking industry around here paid really well.
Yeah, still does, doesn't it?
It does, and it's was a good career at the time. So as soon as I graduated, I went to work full time at a transport company. Stayed there for a couple years. A friend of mine had an opportunity. Said, "Hey, how would you like to go into air freight?" Air freight was kind of an emerging industry then. FedEx was sort of new. Airborne Express, Emory. So I started a air freight owner-operator business. Did that for about 10 years. Kind of had what you call corporate burnout.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Decided it was time for a career change and actually saw an ad in the paper that said, if you want to be a general contractor or learn carpentry, come to CPC and take this class. So for some reason, it just appealed to me. I went and took this class. It was a training class with home builders. It was an 8-month full-time training program where we framed houses for local builders. I teamed up with some of the folks that were in the class. We started a framing company.
Oh, wow.
Went out and started framing houses for major builders. Decided maybe I should get my contractor's license. Went back to CPCC and took general contractor classes, drafting. Then went on and got my contractor's license and started doing some remodeling, some building. Was really liking it, doing well, and then as life does sometimes, I got dealt a little different hand. Somebody that I was in class with, action instructor of mine, said, "Hey, you ever thought about teaching and coming and teaching the construction side of it, and you could probably do really well."
So that's how that came about.
Yeah, so then I started off part-time. I used to teach carpentry part-time. Did that for about 3.5 years, I guess. Then got on full-time as a CCE coordinator. Did that for, I don't know how long, 5-6 years, and then moved up to
CCE
division.
coordinator, what is that?
It's the other side of the college classes that are non-credit. It's
like the continuing education.
Yes, the continuation education side of it. So, and we did a lot of short-term work development training there. So I kind of got to see both sides of the education.
Okay, so both those that are more like professional training, and then the others that are leading more towards a degree or certificate.
Exactly.
Like that. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's kind of a convoluted path to where I am today, but
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think what I love most about what you mentioned too is the fact that you had done some things in freight transportation and had your own business. And then you also did some things as a general contractor, is that correct?
That's correct.
And had your own business. And I think for a lot of students and parents that are watching at home, entrepreneurship and entrepreneur period is like the new hot sexy word. But I think a lot of times because of people's perception and maybe perhaps a stigma with the trades for whatever reason, just because of the lack of exposure, they don't always think of the fact that, you know, in the trades even or in those technical areas, you can actually own your own business and make a lot of money. You can do very well. Yeah,
actually I think in construction industry in general, it's a great opportunity for smaller companies to get started. I mean, it's forgiving as long as you do what you say you're going to do. You be where you're supposed to be and perform well and do a job. You can really do well as a small business in the construction areas. And
I'm learning that more and more as I'm exposed even to different construction companies that exist out there. So that being said, with so many different opportunities, let's say if someone was to pursue an area like architectural technology, I know Dr. Trainor mentioned you could be a draftsman, that sort of thing. Are there some other areas that are in relation to that? Maybe like a lot of kids I know like 3D animation, and is 3D design a part of that, or?
It really is. The architectural world has, because of technologies, changed tremendously.
Okay.
There's not a lot of hand drawing, blueprint drafting that goes on anymore. It's more of a communications tool, a way to talk to somebody and to design something. Most of it's done on computers, either through CAD or BIM, the Building Information Modeling.
Okay.
Really high tech, really a great way for especially young people that are very tech savvy to get into it. A lot of career paths there, a lot of tie into construction management.
Wow.
A lot of companies need somebody that knows construction, knows some hands-on, but also knows the technology side of it, so they can do, you know, BIM and kind of be the go-between between the architect and the construction management person. So it's a really good entry-level field, you know, for folks to get into with a 2-year associate's degree.
That's pretty cool. And I know when I used to work in a lot of the high schools, I used to speak with a lot of the drafting classes, and at that time they were just beginning to use some of the animation or the 3D software, like 3D Studio Max I know was one that was really popular at that time, but BIM, and you said there was another CAD,
yeah, computer aided drafting. Yeah, it's really good. I think the really good thing about it is there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, on and off ramps. I mean, you don't have to go and get an associate's degree if you don't want to. Now, you can do enough with a certificate that you can get started into it. So if you want to do it real short term, you can do that. The other side of it, if you want to transfer it to a 4-year, it also works really well there now. You can do a 2+2. So it gives
now for
a lot of
those
options.
watching at home, what is a 2+2 for somebody that's not familiar with that terminology?
Yeah, 2+2 is where you start with us, do a 2-year degree, get your associate's degree, and then transfer it to a 4-year. And basically you have 2 years left to get your bachelor's. Saves a lot of money, you get a lot of credentialing. It works really well. And not all colleges do a true 2+2, but we have a lot of articulation agreements, especially with North Carolina colleges. It works really well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. So that was architectural technology. Let's talk a little bit about construction management. That kind of runs the gamut. I know we touched in the first segment a little bit on maybe project management. What are some other things you could do? If I was to go and get a degree in construction management, or maybe just a certificate, how could I start off in an entry-level position? What could I expect to do?
Yeah, one of the places people usually start, and a good entry point, is what we call a field engineer or a field superintendent.
Okay, sounds important.
Well, it's kind of the muddy boots of running the job. It's not necessarily the project manager, but it's the person that works with the subs, coordinates the job site, works with all the MEPs, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the subcontractors, and the trades. It's kind of like you would say...
kind of like the apprentice maybe for...
Yeah, kind of like the apprentice, a place to start, because you put a lot of what we teach them at the college together with some hands-on experience. They're really valuable. It's one of the biggest demands right now in the construction is the field superintendent.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Well, a lot of people want to start out in the office. They want to run the business and own the business before they kind of start. Yeah, exactly. So it's a great way to build up, start with a company, get some more training, and move up. It's kind of the way it's always been.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So moving on to electrical, what are some baseline entry-level positions if you were to get a degree or at least maybe 1 or 2 certificates in that area? And what are some of the certificate specializations even for electrical?
Electrical has a lot of career pathways right now. I mean, everything from a residential electrician where, you're wiring houses, multifamily houses, to commercials, where you're doing big businesses. A lot of that is on the install side, actually working to become an electrician.
Okay.
Becoming an apprentice, a journeyman, then get your electrical license.
Okay.
Then there's the whole other side of it that is PLCs, programmable logical controls.
Wow, say that 5 times fast.
Exactly.
Okay, now what is that exactly?
Well, basically it's where they're learning to control anything from a smart house to a conveyor belt in a factory to robotics.
Okay.
And what that is they end up programming it so they can tell that machine or that building or that house exactly what to do. It kind of turns logic into electricity or vice versa.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's really an electrical skill set because they have to understand, what it takes to run that motor, but they have to be able to program it. So if you're sitting here and let's say there's a conveyor belt running down the hall,
right.
You have to be able to understand how to make it work from here and then walk down the hall and it's actually doing what it says it's going to do.
Gotcha.
Really
gotcha.
great high demand area right now, especially with manufacturing coming back.
Right, and I was going to say I've heard advanced manufacturing. A lot of people say manufacturing is out, but advanced manufacturing is booming.
It's very much booming, and then the technician side of it, which is the person that actually works on it, that maintains it, that programs them, that
the people that keep the line going.
They keep the line going is in high demand. Really, everything from the airport. The baggage sort centers.
Oh,
to,
just practical stuff that you don't always think of.
Yep, that's usually an electrician that does best with that because he understands all they need to know about how the motors run, how the electricity works, amperage, those kind of things.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Last but not least, let's talk about air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration. So that's one of the areas under your umbrella as well, right?
It is.
Tell me a little bit about that. What are some of the career paths available if someone was to study that?
The very interesting thing about air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration, there's lots of sides to it. You can be an installation. You can also be a service. It's one of the few trades that has kind of a built-in maintenance part of it because a lot of times with electrical or construction management, architecture, once you're done, you're kind of finished with it.
Right.
Air conditioning, heating, that's not the case.
Right, that's ongoing.
It's ongoing. You always got to have it
another
serviced.
hot day come in or another
That's
cool
right.
day.
That's right. So there's lots of ways to get into that business. So you can get a contract where you're constantly working on servicing their unit once a year, changing the filters, making sure Freon's charged and up to date. So it's a really good where you have a varied career path that you can get into. Refrigeration. Wow. Think about the big grocery stores. They can't afford to let those refrigerants go down because they'll lose millions of dollars. Okay. That's a really high demand area, so that because you're on call,
right.
But they need you when they need you to make sure that all that stuff doesn't go bad. Really interesting career.
Wow, yeah, and that's something I don't know that most people think of, and I know even prior to me having a little bit more exposure, it's not something I thought about in terms of the refrigeration side, especially commercial. I mean, whether you think of going to your favorite coffee shop and keeping the refrigerated drinks cold, or if you go to a grocery store, your favorite frozen foods, whatever, all of that has to be refrigerated. Somebody has to maintain those if they go break down or what have you.
Yeah, our lab facilitator, Roger McDowell, reminds me, he says, you're at Myrtle Beach, July 4th, hot as it can be. You think anybody wants to be out of ice?
No.
He said, yeah, you're going to be,
yeah, you're the popular man
You're the popular man. Like, I guarantee you they're going to make sure that ice maker's working and all that's cool. So it's a different career path. It is. It's very important.
And it's unique. It's something we take for granted, but very, very important, whether it's the heating side or the cooling side.
Yep.
Real quick, before we wrap up, salary ranges for some of those areas. So architectural technology or construction management, somebody starting off can anticipate roughly what range at their baseline?
If you're looking at an hourly rate, it's somewhere around $15 to $20 an hour when they come out.
Okay.
If you're looking,
Which is pretty good.
It's pretty good with a potential up to 50 to 60,000 in a couple years with some experience and some additional training.
Okay.
They're all about the same entry level for that.
Okay.
Potential, depending, if you go into business for yourself, as we talked earlier, there's those numbers are off the roof. I mean, you can do as much as you want to and make as much as you want to, by doing that. So I think that earning potential depends on the motivation of the person. How if they want to be an entrepreneur, if they want to go to work for a large company, small company, the demand is huge, and I think the earning potential is unlimited.
Wow, so many options. And you said it's about the same even for the electrical and
electrical and HVAC. If you get your license and become a licensed electrician or a licensed HVAC, then you're obviously going to make a lot more.
Okay.
Because you can demand a lot more because you're taking on a lot of the risk, the things associated with it. So it pays a lot more once you get your license.
Wow, wow. And one other thing, one of the reasons for doing this particular show, ladies and gentlemen, is because I think exposure and career awareness is key. It's critical. And for so many schools across the nation, they don't offer shop classes anymore. They don't have any of these technical things to expose students to. I'm going to close out with two quotes. Well, one quote and then just the poem that we usually do. So one of the quotes that I looked up when I was doing some research for today's show is that over 60% or 60% of students say they are more interested in working in the trades or skilled trades after they've known someone who's worked in that industry, and they'd be more interested as a result of that exposure because they know that they can still work for someone else and earn up to maybe $90,000 or more. Again, it's all about exposure. It's all about career awareness, and hopefully we've expanded your mind today. I want to thank you for watching, and I want to wrap up with this quick poem, and it is To Know Thyself. So to know thyself is to love thyself, is to examine, evaluate, and observe thyself. It's to check thyself, is to respect thyself. Is to be mindful of the inner voice within thyself. It is an ongoing process, never to be explained in a brief synopsis. To know thyself is a preoccupation. It's a self-discovering revelation that can only be achieved through discipline and determination. Discover who you are, discover your gifts and talents, and thank you for watching today's show.